What is going on, everyone? It is Destroy with Astro DFS, bringing you Wednesday's video, just going over the running backs. This week, we only have two running backs above 8K. One of them still might not possibly play. I do believe he will, but there's a good chance he still doesn't too. That's Saquon Barkley at almost $9,000. The reason Saquon Barkley is almost $9,000, if he plays, for when Arizona gives up a lot of yards to running backs, not a lot of fantasy points though, but a lot of yards. If Saquon plays, we saw what this Giants offense can do with Daniel Jones as a leader. And if they're all healthy and you get Saquon Barkley honestly healthy, I don't know what kind of workload. I can't imagine they're going to have him do a huge workload. This offense is really good. I don't like Saquon. If he does play, I mean, he can go off for easily 100 yards against Arizona here. Easily. It's just he's coming off an injury to where he's made great progress at. And I don't know if he's still going to be 100%, even though they clear him to play. You don't know what kind of workload they're going to give him either. So we'll have to stay up with the news, see if he does actually play. If not, Dalvin Cook is playing Detroit. Detroit is one of the only three defensive teams, let me change that, to allow over 30 fantasy points a game. And Dalvin Cook is having a phenomenal year. Like, he really is. His workload last week got cut down just because, I mean, Kirk Cousins, Stephon Diggs, and Adam Thielen were doing a really, really good job. You saw the week 5, great workload, 21 carries, 132 yards, 6 receptions for 88 yards. Had a great game. He did have 2 fumbles, but he almost got 30 points. He's in another really good game. And Detroit's defense doesn't look terrible. Passing-wise, I mean, if they're healthy, their passing defense doesn't look that bad, but their rushing defense is just terrible. They've only allowed 5 rushing touchdowns this season, which is top 10 in the league. But they allow a lot of receiving yards to running backs too, and Dalvin Cook is a receiving back also. We see him almost get more, like the same, if not more, receiving yards than rushing yards. He's capable of getting 100, just like Christian McCaffrey. Stephon Diggs and Adam Thielen and Kirk Cousins are all stepping up offensively and helping that offense to where you don't need to rely on Dalvin Cook that much, but it's in a great spot for Dalvin Cook at 8K too. I'm perfectly fine of paying up for him. David Johnson, on the other hand, is going to be playing the Giants, and the Giants are they're not a good defense. Not a good defense at all. Allow top 5 receiving yards to running backs in the league. David Johnson's another 2-type running back to where he's a receiving back and a rushing back. He can do both. If Christian Kirk's in the game, though, that definitely brings his value down for a receiving back. The Giants' defense, they're not there. Like I said, we've seen times to where they look decent. We've seen it when they played New England and they got to Tom Brady, one of the best offenses in the league. And they could do it again here against Arizona. It's just, for 7,800, David Johnson's not a bad play at all. But pay 200 more for Dalvin Cook, who has such a better matchup. In cash, that is. In cash, Dalvin Cook is just in a great spot here. The only way he doesn't hit value or doesn't produce is if he gets hurt. And he's looked really healthy this year. He barely pops up on the injured list, missed practice, anything. So definitely love Dalvin Cook. Kamara playing my Bears at Chicago. Just don't love it. The only the only real points I see Kamara getting is just receiving receptions and receiving yards. That's basically it. He can run. We've seen people like Josh Jacobs run against the Bears. It's just, I don't know. The Bears just have a solid defense. That's all it comes down to. Aaron Jones, this one for me, Oakland's defense doesn't look too bad against running backs. Jamal Williams got put back into the game plan last week, but a lot of Green Bay wide receivers are hurt, and Aaron Jones might have to do another big workload. They're playing at Green Bay, and with how Jamal Williams just had a great game, Aaron Jones dropped an open touchdown, fumbled. This is a great bounce back game for him, in my opinion. I'm not too high on him, though, especially when you look at the two running backs below him. But he's not a bad play either. They have committed to the 50-50 of passing, rushing, and Aaron Jones is the number one running back. Jamal Williams gets in the game a lot, but if all their wide receivers are hurt, like they got hurt against Detroit, basically, Devontae Adams should be back, but he's still down two receivers. Aaron Jones is probably going to get a few more carries than usual, so not a terrible bad play here. Leonard Fournette, I think if you don't want to go too expensive on a running back, Leonard Fournette is in the best spot here. They're playing against the Cincinnati Bengals, who are tied for first in rushing touchdowns against running backs with 7, allowed 759 rushing yards to running backs, almost 400 receiving yards to running backs, and 3 touchdowns. They allow 36.1 fantasy points a game against running backs. And guess what? Gardner Minshew just had a terrible game. Leonard Fournette has been getting 20 carries a game, and he's been getting targeted in the backfield. Targeted at least 6 times in the last 3 out of 4 games is crazy. He doesn't get a lot of receiving yards. He's more of a check down guy. But the man is getting carries. He's in a great spot here, 7,000. Gardner Minshew is going to have a better game, which helps Leonard Fournette. I love Jacksonville against Cincinnati. 7,000, perfect price for me. I love it. Right below him is our boy, Mark Ingram. At the beginning of the season, I said I didn't like any Baltimore running backs, but they've said Mark Ingram is the number one running back. Granted, they've given a lot more snaps to other running backs, whether that be a slot or just taking Ingram out and just having Ingram do a lot of the red zone work. Seattle gives up 6 rushing touchdowns this season, so a rushing touchdown every game, basically, to a running back. Ingram, like I said, is their red zone running back. They give up a lot of receiving yards, over 300 receiving yards to running backs. And they're kind of average on fantasy points, but still, Baltimore just got a huge upgrade in their defense. Going to make it a little tougher for Russell Wilson, that offense. Russell Wilson is still on fire, and Seattle's defense has looked really, really good. But still, if they're going to get in the red zone, Ingram's going to get a lot of the looks, and Seattle just doesn't have the best rushing defense this season. So definitely liking Mark Ingram here. 6,600, 6,500 is going to be our boy Chris Carson. Chris Carson has been killing me as far as taking him, not taking him. So yeah, it's been interesting. He's going against Baltimore's rush defense, which is way worse than their passing defense. They do get a little help in Marcus Peters, though. I think Marcus Peters just didn't fit in that defense. I think he has a legitimate upgrade here with the Baltimore defense. They don't have the pass rush that the Rams do, but they play man and zone coverage way better than the Rams do. So definitely like him here. Or definitely like Baltimore's defense. Pass defense. So that makes Chris Carson a viable option. Baltimore doesn't give up a lot of rushing yards to running backs, but they are tied for first place in rushing touchdowns against them at 7. So if you want to run the ball in for touchdown, you can do it against Baltimore. It's not that hard, apparently. They don't give a lot of receiving yards for running backs either. Like I said, their pass game was just better. So we might see Chris Carson get a little more rushes this week, but you just never know. It just depends on how Baltimore's offense plays. If Baltimore's offense can put some points on the board, then Russell Wilson's going to have to throw it a little bit more. And if they have to throw, they do have 2 running backs behind Carson that are receiving backs. So a little bit interesting there, especially at the price point, 6,500. I think it's a fair price point, but just the matchup is a little weird right now. Todd Gurley, questionable. Don't know if he's going to play. If he plays against Atlanta, the Rams are due for a huge bounce back game, especially after that blowout last week. Todd Gurley plays. I could see Todd Gurley honestly destroy Atlanta, but we'll just have to see on the injury report this week. If not, we could always target Brown. Brown's in a good spot this week. Austin Eckler and Melvin Gordon, we'll just go over both of them. Eckler has been doing a lot of receiving. As you could see, week 5, he was targeted 16 times. 16. Yeah. So what happens when your team's injured? Their team is healthy. They're going against a Tennessee defense who is just really good. Really good against running backs, too. They do allow a decent amount of yards. They've yet to allow a receiving touchdown to running backs. Austin Eckler, receiving running back. So, and plus, they've only allowed 3 rushing touchdowns against them. Tennessee's defense looks good. It's their offense that screws them up. I'll continue to say it. But they're not my favorites here at all. There's just a lot more options that I feel safe going over. Texans are a little a fun one to look at. So Texans have allowed 440 rushing yards to running backs this season. They've allowed 402 receiving yards to running backs this season. Marlon Mack is a guy that Indianapolis relies on for a lot. He doesn't get the receptions. That's more Hines. Plus, they have a lot of checkdowns. They're running 2 tight ends, so I don't see him get many receiving yards. It's just a lot of rushes. They're playing in Indianapolis, so maybe that bumps up my interest in Marlon Mack a little more, but not huge on Marlon Mack. Houston's offense just looks really good too, so it might turn into a more passing game than rushing game. So definitely got to look at that. Derrick Henry playing the Chargers. This one's a weird one too. Chargers allow a lot of rushing yards, 654, only 4 touchdowns, and they allow only 250 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns to running backs. Tennessee is going with Ryan Tannehill this week. Last week was just terrible playing Denver. They got shut out. He averaged 1.9 yards a game, or that game, per carry. He's got 10 plus points a game all this season, and they played some good defenses. The only good game he's substantially good game, fantasy point, DK points, whatever you want to consider it, of getting 20 plus. He's at 58, which is the lowest he's been all season. So that brings maybe a little interest in there, but not a huge amount, especially if the Chargers defense is healthy. The Chargers defense is healthy. They do actually have a good defense, but they've just been so banged up. Malcolm Brown is questionable, day-to-day ankle injury. So yeah, I think whoever is the running back for the Rams are going to throw the ball a lot. Playing against one of the worst passing defenses in the league, and they just had a terrible game. But they're still going to have to run the ball here and there. So whoever plays is definitely going to get some good yardage there because Atlanta's going to have to protect the pass all game. So whoever the running back for the Rams is going to have a decent game. Here's one of my favorite plays. Just I started off the looked at the price, looked at the matchup. It's Tevin Coleman. Since getting back from the injury, week 1, he got injured. He's got a touchdown in both games. He's got at least 16 carries. And he got 3 targets last week. Week 5, they just I don't think they wanted to get him fully in everything. 16 carries, he had 97 yards. Plus, you have Breida right behind him, who's another great running back. I mean, he showed, and they're going against a terrible Washington defense. Like I said, Washington's been getting a little better, but not that crazy good. They allow 633 rushing yards a season, 4 touchdowns, and that's because they've allowed a lot of passing on them. And they just played Miami, which is just weird. So they do allow 321 receiving yards to running backs and 2 touchdowns there. Top 10 in fantasy points allowed to running backs. It's, in my opinion, it's whoever you want to go with. I'm putting more money on Devin Coleman this week, just seeing of how good he's done. But look at Breida too. Put up 30 against Cleveland, win the game when Coleman was back. He gets a decent amount of receptions. I mean, week 1, week 2, the 3-headed monster. They still have a good 3-headed monster for the running back, but I think it's going to just be a lot more Matt Breida and Tevin Coleman. But it's honestly just a preference. If you want to save $300 and go Breida, he's not going to do bad. He's not going to. They're playing Washington. They run the ball. That's what that offense wants to do, is run the ball. They pass when they have to. They don't have a lot of good receivers. And they have George Kittle. So they're either going George Kittle or the running backs for the most part. So either one is fine with me. I love them both in a good position here. Another great play is Devin Singletary playing against the second worst rushing defense in the league, allowing 749 yards, 5 touchdowns. In just the rush game, they allow 228 receiving yards, but why throw the ball to the running back when you can just throw an easy touchdown to a receiver, But they do allow 3 receiving touchdowns also, and they've only allowed 3, or they've broken up 3 passes to the running back. Teams that face Miami are 22 for 25 on throws to the running back, so they don't. But like I said, you're throwing against Miami. Like, you're not going to throw to the running back unless you have to do a quick check down. You're going to throw to a receiver. Buffalo has a good amount of receivers. If Devin Singletary plays, well, let's just look. Devin Singletary plays week 1, 70 yards, only 4 rushes. Week 2, 57 yards, a touchdown on 6 carries. He had 5 receptions week 1 too. Like, if he is fully healthy, if they say they're going to give him the workload, Frank Gore's still going to get touches unless Frank Gore's hurt. But that man does not get hurt. It's hard. For as old as he is. But it's another instance. If Singletary's not 100%, Frank Gore is a very good option at 5,200. Frank Gore is proven at the age he's at, he can still run the ball. He's got at least 60 yards in the last 4 games he's played. Granted, like I said, there's not really been another running back, but still. Played against Tennessee's defense, played against New England's defense. He got 100 yards against New England. You're playing against one of the worst rushing defenses in the league. He's going to have a great game. He really is. So it's another instance. It's a preference. 5,400 Singletary, 5,200 Gore. Whatever opens up cash. Devontae Freeman just... Oh, man. There's not a lot of people that I think call that. He's been consistent lately, if you look at his numbers, just getting a lot of receptions. Here's the thing. We just got the breaking news that Jalen Ramsey yesterday got traded to the Rams. If he's playing, his back, if he's playing, that Rams defense is going to be crazy good. Julio's going to get locked down, not fully, but locked down against Jalen Ramsey. Keep Talib is on the IR, so they're going to be weak on the other side. But the Rams offense is just going to unleash, and they're going to have to pass the ball. So the only true value I see this week, especially the Rams rush defense isn't the greatest, isn't the best either. They have allowed almost 600 rushing yards and 6 touchdowns to running backs. Granted, they just had 2 terrible games. But I don't see Devontae Freeman doing this again. Not this week. Maybe in weeks to come, but not this week. Their home makes just a little more interest, but like there's so many running backs. Like I said, Coleman 5,600, Singletary 5,400, Breida 53, Frank Gore, all those options right there. I'd rather take my money on them than Freeman. Freeman, GBP, sure. Cash, no. Latavius Murray, backup maybe if he starts. He's still playing the Bears. Like I said, they just don't give up a lot of points. Their Bears are going to be home. Not my favorite play here. Man, Kerryon Johnson, just you never know what this guy's going to do. Gets 125 yards against Kansas City, great matchup. Against Green Bay, they didn't run the ball that much. Gets 34 yards. Gets 36 against Philly. 41. Like you just don't know. Sorry, I don't like him 5,100. A lot more options that I like. Josh Jacobs went off against my Bears. If Josh Jacobs can go off against the Bears, like he's almost got 100 rushing yards in three games. He got over 100 against Chicago. He got 79 against Indianapolis, 99 against KC, and then 85 against Denver. It's just of what Oakland's team is going to do. Green Bay is going to be home. Green Bay, don't get me wrong, 644 yards, tied for first, 7 touchdowns allowed to running backs. And then they give up 280 receiving yards, only 1 receiving touchdown. Josh Jacobs he's a running back. Like I don't want to say he's much of a receiving back because he's only got targeted 3, 2, 2, 1. I just want to say he's a running back, not a receiving back yet. So if their game plan is to run against Green Bay, which it should be, Josh Jacobs at 5,000, crazy good play. I like him. Perfect value, perfect price point. I love him here. Joe Mixon against Jacksonville. Yeah, Jacksonville 685 yards, 5 touchdowns, 254 receiving yards. Sure, I just don't like Cincinnati's offense. That's the only thing. If Cincinnati had a good offense, they were healthy on the pass game, Joe Mixon would be a fine play. It's just they're so hurt. Let's go over a few other people. Jamal Williams, great game against Detroit. Playing Oakland, I mean, like I said, I just like Aaron Jones here. David Montgomery. New Orleans rush defense is crazy good. Sorry about that. Their rush defense is crazy good. I don't know who the quarterback's going to be. That whole game plan just changes on the quarterback. So tune in to Sunday's video, and I'll have a final answer on a Chicago running back. Edmonds, no interest if Johnson's there. Hyde, no interest playing against Indianapolis' rushing defense. And I think that's it. Everyone else is pretty much a backup running back. The only person, I mean, and he doesn't have a great matchup at all, is Adrian Peterson if Christian Thompson's out. Not a good matchup at all, playing against the best rushing defense in the league. But if he's the only rushing or running back for the most part, sure, they have Smallwood, but that's pretty much it. That would be the only other guy that I would even consider, and that's still not even consider. I mean, the best rushing defense in the league, like I said, you never want to go against that. Anyway, guys, that is it. I know this video was kind of long, but I had to go in a little bit of detail this week. A lot of great matchups, like I said, this week at running back, so I'm loving running backs this week. Going to make some fun plays, especially with prices all around this week, so we'll see how it goes. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Leave a like if you did, subscribe if you haven't already, and follow us on Twitter, and we will see you in the next video. Thanks, guys.